people who lost their lives, thousands in the 9/11 terror attacks. We also mourn the families who lost their loved ones. Michael Jaramita, Second Amendment attorney and founder of Jaramita Law, is here with us today. Thanks so much for coming on. This day really has been a day of unity. So many have come on the show and the program and shared their personal stories as we all remember where we were during that time. I understand you have a special story that you grew up with friends in New York City that were deeply impacted by 9/11. If you could, tell me about that.
I did, Sean. But first of all, I have to absolutely say that your interview with Mayor Giuliani was unquestionably one of the most emotionally hard-hitting things I've ever seen in my entire life, undoubtedly. And it really reminds me of something that President Trump said during the Republican primary debates. Somebody said something to the effect of, "You don't find too many conservatives coming out of New York City." And Trump spoke about how the New Yorkers gathered, how we gathered after 9/11. We rallied together as Americans. And I don't think anybody's got any delusions that New York was some kind of conservative stronghold in 2001, but we had a common purpose. We had to get together and rally together. Now, absolutely, people hear what I do in defending the Second Amendment for a living, and they sort of assume that I grew up in the country on a farm somewhere, but I spent the first 20 years of my life in Brooklyn and Staten Island, and I was a freshman in high school in Staten Island on 9/11, and I recall that you had students coming in and pulling the teacher out to the hall, and then some staff members, and after the third or the fourth time, the teacher came back into the classroom and said, "Listen, one of the towers was hit by an airplane. We believe it's terrorism, and we're not supposed to do this, but we're going to pray." She was an Irish Catholic lady. We all prayed. One of the things that really stuck with me from that day, the kid who sat next to me, his father was a firefighter, and his father never made it home that night. And the things that happened to him and his family, I really want to urge everybody to remember the events that took place that day and the heroes that we saw come on out and sacrifice themselves for the greater good.
Yeah, those are the first responders, your men and women in blue, your firefighters, your policemen, and so on. Supporting them is very important. I want you, if you could respond to this, there are many people, young folks, that are growing up now that have to learn about 9/11 that didn't get to experience it the way that you did or others. They didn't go through that. But how important is it to continue and never forget, continue to teach those growing up now about what happened in 9/11, not specifically the attack itself, but the unity that every American, not just New York City, but every American found on that day and going forward?
Sean, first you make me feel a little bit like an old man saying that, but aside from that,
I'm in the same boat with you, so.
I don't think words can really describe how important it is to keep all of this in mind and to understand the unity, because frankly, I'm concerned that we might not see something like that today. I'm concerned that the American people are not capable of rallying together the way we did back then. We have to understand how important it was that we did that, because we're still seeing the effects today. You know, my uncle was exposed to the Ground Zero. He was one of the people who worked in the aftermath in the days and months leading afterwards, and the exposure killed him. He died in his early 50s as a result. We will not know how many people truly died from the events on that day for decades to come.
Right, and we'll continue to pay attention not to that, but just also the stories of heroism and resilience on those days of people pulling people out of the rubble and everything that went into, you know, the recovery efforts in that day. Those stories will continue to live on. We'll never forget. And I appreciate you, by the way, coming on and sharing your personal experience as well with our viewers. It means a lot. Michael Jaramita, good to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sean.